Imagine you're sitting in your own living room, and a group of strangers walks right through the front door. They tell you they own the house now. They'll be making the rules, and if you want to keep sleeping in your own bed, you have to pay them rent. In the late 19th century, communities across East Africa faced this exact scenario. British and German colonizers arrived, claiming outright ownership of lands that had belonged to indigenous kingdoms for centuries. The threat was immediate. Colonial administrators imposed strict new laws, seized fertile communal farmland, and forced local populations into unpaid physical labor to build their roads. Indigenous leaders had to react instantly. They were forced into a primary response, having to choose between two extremely dangerous paths: take up arms in active resistance or attempt to survive through strategic collaboration. This arrival left no room for middle ground. Leaders had to decide in a matter of weeks whether their communities would meet this force with a spear or a signature. Let's look at the resistors first. Leaders like Omukama Kabalega, king of the Bunyoro Empire, chose to fight back directly against the British advance. Kabalega's strategy was based on clear objectives: protecting his kingdom's sovereignty and defending traditional religions against Christian missionaries. He relied on a massive standing army, well-equipped with firearms acquired through long-distance trade. But the resistance strategy collided with a massive technological gap. The British forces possessed the Maxim machine gun, an industrial weapon that easily mowed down traditional infantry formations. Seeing this destruction, other leaders chose collaboration. Figures like Nua Magata of Ankole and Sir Apollo Kagwa of the Buganda Kingdom allied with the colonizers, maintaining positions of wealth and local authority. These leaders recognized that fighting a machine gun was suicide. By allying with the British, kingdoms like Buganda gained military protection against traditional rivals and secured a place in the new colonial order. Neither path was a simple choice between heroism or cowardice. Both were desperate maneuvers designed to navigate a situation where the old rules of power no longer applied. The ultimate product of this collaboration was the 1900 Buganda Agreement. This was a legally binding treaty signed between British representatives and the regents of the Buganda Kingdom. The treaty rewired land ownership, dividing Buganda into two legal categories. Half became British Crown land, while the other became Milo land, privately owned by the king and chiefs. As a reward, Buganda's borders expanded, absorbing the lost counties from their defeated rival, Bunyoro. To fund the colonial administration, the treaty introduced a gun tax and a hut tax, levied on every traditional dwelling in a village. Before this, local communities did not need money to survive. The hut tax forced self-sufficient farmers to grow cash crops like cotton, simply to get the coins required to pay the British. The agreement allowed Buganda to remain a wealthy state within a state, but it came at the cost of their economic freedom and their absolute independence. Across the border in Kenya, colonial dynamics triggered a different crisis. A power struggle erupted between native Africans, wealthy Indian businessmen, and white European settlers who wanted to turn the country into a white-ruled state. In 1923, the British government intervened with the Devonshire White Paper to settle the dispute. The document made a definitive legal declaration. Kenya was primarily an African territory, and the interests of native Africans were paramount. While native Kenyans still endured decades of subjugation, this paper legally blocked the white settlers from establishing an independent minority state like the one seen further south in Africa. These agreements did more than settle immediate disputes. They established new class hierarchies within African societies that would persist for generations. The creation of Malo land took property that had belonged collectively to clans and handed it to a few elites. This instantly transformed thousands of commoners into landless squatters on their own ancestral soil. The transfer of the lost counties to Buganda turned a local rivalry into a permanent territorial dispute, fueling deep-seated friction between the Buganda and Bunyoro people long after the colonial era ended. The choices made between the spear and the pen established the property laws and boundary disputes that still define the East African landscape today.